So this is the API where you can actually submit tool outputs to run. So this is where we actually return our response to our assistant. So what it does here, it needs a thread ID and run ID. We already have these both. So let's see what it requires within the request body. So within the request body, it needs a tool call ID. So the ID of the tool call in the required action object within the run object, the output is being submitted for. Okay, so whenever we get the requires action status, there will be this object required action, which will hold an object called tool ID. And later on, we, alongside with tool call ID, we also need to send our assistant the output. So the output of the total call to be submitted to continue the run. So which means that if we don't actually complete this step, our state would be stuck in the requires action. And after 10 minutes, it's going to expire. So there's no moving forward without telling your assistant these whole details. So we have a code snippet over here. So we need to make sure that we're providing it with the right headers. And this is a post call. And within the data section, we have this array of objects. It says tool output. And within an object, we have tool call ID, and we have the any output that we receive from our function calling. So we have to do this step before calling the function because it takes the return output from the function. So I think the very first thing that we need to do is we need to fetch out the tool call ID. Then we need to call the function, and then we need to submit the response to our assistant, and we need to do it from tool call ID and the output itself that we receive from the function. So these are the 3 steps that we need to do. So let's complete them one by one. First thing first, tool call ID. I would need to make a new method for it. Let's call this method fetch tool call ID. Perfect. And this needs a thread ID and the run identifier. Perfect. Let's remove this. We don't need this anymore. And let's create a new method that takes in the thread ID and run ID. Perfect. All right. So what we need to do here, we need to make sure that we fetch out the details from the run instance. When I say the run instance, obviously the run instance has the state, and from there onwards, we actually print out the states, and that's how you're seeing the state here. For example, right here within the while loop, we're fetching the state out of the run instances. So here, what we need to do, we need to say message client.beta.threads.run.retrieve, and we need to pass in our thread ID is equal to thread ID, and run ID is equals to run ID. Perfect. Afterwards, we need, once we have that message, because it's pretty similar to what we're doing over here, just here. And this actually, in a way, it doesn't always return a list. it always returns the recent instance, and we can sort of fetch out anything that we need from here. Previously, we've just been fetching out the status. Okay, so for this particular message, what we need is return message dot required action. Oops. Required action is the object, and within that object we need to fill in submit tool outputs, if I remember it correctly, outputs dot tool calls, and we need the very first index and ID. So I actually tried this before, so I know that, you know, within the required object there is a submit tool outputs, and within that we get the tool calls ID. So this is an array, but since we are only dealing with one tool, by one tool we mean like one method. So in this case, in this particular case, since we have one method, so whenever there's a requires action state, we know that, you know, it's the only tool call there is. So hence the 0. Perfect. So we have the tool call ID over here. Now we need to figure out the second part. We need to call a method. So for that, we need to build out a method. So let's do that over here. Def place order. We have to make sure that this is exactly the name that we actually provided here. Otherwise, it won't detect your method. So, okay. So like we said, we don't need to do anything fancy over here. We just need to demonstrate it. And let's keep things simple. We will be generating, you know, or adding in parameters and then generating those parameters through our assistant in the next video. But for this video, let's keep things simple, and let's just get the lifecycle states right, just so that we have our assistant working form in order to call a function. So I'll be calling my API from here. Call your API from here. So for now, let's return true. All right. This looks good. Now we need to call this method over here. And let's say response. And this is being called over here. Now we need to complete the third step, which is submit the response to our assistant through tool ID and the output that we've just generated. Actually, I'm going to call it output. Okay, so within this function, we need to implement this API call. So I'm going to do it through requests. So let's go at the top. I would need a method over here. Submit tool calls, and this needs a thread ID, a run ID, and the output itself. So everything goes here. So for that, I need import requests, and I'll be creating my request over here. All right. So there are a few things that we need to make sure that we do right, which is that we need an authorization header with our OpenAI key. We need the content type to be application JSON, and OpenAI beta assistant v1. Okay, perfect. So let's do that now. Also, since we fetched out our tool call ID, this would also be a part of it. So submit, let's just keep it simple and let's call it submit output. Let's call it over here. And this needs thread ID, run.id, and this needs tool call ID and the output itself. Perfect. So here again, we need to add the tool call ID parameter just over here. Perfect. So we need to firstly make sure what's the URL. So the URL is, okay, this is our URL. Whoops. And we need thread ID and run ID from here. Let's convert it to the F string. Perfect. So now we have the URL. Now we need a way to actually form our headers, and we can do that within the call itself. But before that, let's prepare our data object that we're gonna send out. So that's also important. So for that, we need to create an array of object since this demands one. And within the object, we need tool call ID. And this should be wrapped into double quotes. Perfect. And tool call ID. And it needs the output. Perfect. So let's print out a log over here. Function calling. And let's say sending. I need a carry return over here just to make a good display. Let's add a try catch block over here. Response requests dot post, and this needs the URL, and we need to provide the JSON. So let's do that, and the JSON needs to be wrapped with the data object. Perfect. Now we need to provide the headers. So let's do that. Let's move on to the next line. All right. So these header needs to be, okay, authorization. Let's copy and paste it, and then we can edit it for ourselves. Content type JSON. And we need OpenAI V1 Assistant. Perfect. So we need to fill in our JSON, and we need to, let's convert it to the F string. Let's get rid of this. Let's add key over here. Content. Whoa. No, I don't need you. Content type, application JSON, need to add a step comma over here, over here, over here, and over here. Perfect. Looks good. Now we need to add the except block, exception, E as E, and here we can print out any error if it occurs, converting it to the F string. E and E. Perfect. Yeah, I think okay, let's print out the response as well. Print function calling. Whoa, function calling. Sent, we need this one. All right. Also, it would be great if we can sort of print the response as well in case there's some sort of an error. So our response would be sent here and print function calling. And let's say, since I need this to be, okay, so this needs to be in JSON, but the terminal is not nice with JSON. So I'm just gonna import JSON over here. Let's hit save. And we need to, where is our method? Okay, we need to do a couple of things here where, so that we can get some, pretty JSON over here. Okay, this needs to be an F string. Perfect. So we need to do JSON loads and response.content. JSON load. Response.content, and this needs to be dumped into JSON dumps. I hope it's not dump. I hope I'm not forgetting that. I think it's dumps. Cool. And for the dumps, we can add an indent of, let's say, 2. Okay. Yep, this will do it. Let's return the response over here. So let's review our code. So we need to submit the output. We need the thread ID, the run ID, tool call ID output. We generate our URL over here. We generate our object that we need to send over here. Calling the function, response, headers, authorization, bearer key, content type, OpenAI Beta, Assistant, V1. I think this looks okay. So I think this should do it. Let's review this part of the code. So we are calling our function. We are fetching out our tool call ID over here. We are placing the order. This will be true. And then we need to submit the tool's ID, and everything else needs to be the same. Okay, now there's one important thing that we forgot. So remember when I told you that this particular, so this particular while loop would only terminate when the status gets completed. But if we see the normal flow, so we go from queued to in progress to completed, but whenever we are in requires action state, there are only two expired state and queued states that can actually be navigated from there. So we have to add the expired status that we created over here to make sure. So let's say not in, and let's create a array over here with the expired state. Perfect. This looks good. Let's test it out and let's see if we have cracked it. Let's check our function real quick. Placeholder function, perfect. Python speaking assistant. Okay, so let's see. Do you have any backs? Just to check if it's responding.
Yes, we have a leather laptop bag available in stock. Would you like more information about this product?
Cool. So Okay, place the order. So obviously as a customer, you'll be talking like this and your assistant would actually figure out whether you want to place the order. So let's see if it does. Okay, we have some issue. So this says run ID in fetch tool call ID. All right, tool call ID, run ID. Okay, we're saving it as run ID, not run.id. Whoop. Okay, we need to change it over here as well. I think now it's fine. Okay, let's start from the beginning. From the top. Do you have any water bottle? Okay. Oh, so this is exactly what I told you. So now we're getting an error and it says can't add message to the thread while a run is active. So just to demonstrate this, I have a particular code that can help detect us that what we're doing wrong. So let's get rid of this and let's go to check.py and I'm gonna add my run instance over here. So this is just a little piece of code that I wrote for debugging. So what it does, it takes a thread ID, a run ID, and it retrieves the status for the most recent run or the last run, and I just print out if the status is completed or it requires action. So I need the status, otherwise I could have just printed out the status. So this looks stupid. But anyways, let's see. Let's clear this out. Python check.py. Okay. No run found for the run ID. Let's see if we are giving it the right run ID. For that, I'll have to. Okay, so this is the thread ID. So let's place a thread ID over here. And this is the run ID. So I'm going to place it over here. I'm going to check again. And it's stuck and requires action. So the only thing we can do is we can cancel our action. For that, we'll have to make another API call, or we wait for 10 minutes to be exact. So it's 3:12 a.m. right now. So let's follow this up after 10 minutes.
10 minutes later.
Hey everybody, we're back after 10 minutes. And what we did wrong was that we provided run.id instead of run_id, which was the run identifier for the run instance, because of which the fetch tool call ID method went meh. So we've corrected it, and after 10 minutes, our run instance should have expired. So let's go ahead and check this out before we proceed any further. Okay, so this says expired. Let me zoom it in for you guys. Perfect. So let's go on and resume our workflow. Okay, so it's working now.
I apologize, but it seems that we have already discussed this. We do have a leather laptop bag available in stock, and I have initiated the order process for you. Is there anything else I can assist you with regarding our products?
Did you actually sense the tone of the assistant change? Dude, that's a lot of attitude right there. And it's also a good thing that, our assistant is getting more intelligent, as it stated that, hey, I've, already discussed this. He was also taking some deep breaths. I really enjoyed this conversation. Nice. Let's go ahead and ask, do you have any water bottles? Okay.
Yes, we have a stainless steel water bottle available in stock. Would you like to proceed with placing an order for this item?
This is nice. Okay. I would like to place the order. Fingers crossed. All right. Perfect.
Your order for the stainless steel water bottle has been placed successfully. If there's anything else you'd like to know or purchase, feel free to ask.
Nice. So finally, our function calling instance was initiated over here. What? Sending? I need to correct this. Anyways, this is our function calling object. So once it has been initiated, it sent me a success block, which we actually printed just like that. But we can refine it and just place, the status over here, which happens to be queued. So once the function calling was successful, it queued the message again. Then the message actually went from there towards its normal flow. And finally, the function was called and the order was placed. Currently, we didn't have anything within the function. We just had a empty function which returned true. But you get the idea now that we can just place our any API over here, and that would be placed on our behalf. We would experiment around this within the upcoming videos. We would also add a few parameters over here, like quantity or the product ID and stuff like that. So yeah, interesting stuff coming up. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to, learn more about generative AI, you can subscribe to my channel. And yep, I'm going to see you in the next videos. So take care till then.